So here is a story that I have long wanted to break because I knew, given all of the institutions and the variables involved in this equation, this present scenario was an inevitability, like the day and night cycle. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. One of the things that made a lot of people on the right go, oh hell, was the woke garbage spreading out of campus after they were so sure its gross incompetence and lack of real-world compatibility would render it useless. And then it started infecting real-world institutions and then hello culture war. However, now that it's actually starting to manifest itself in certain tangible ways in corporate America, it turns out they aren't big fans of it, as Big Biz has found that critical race theory is bad for business. Oh, I can't imagine why. Oh, this headline makes me so very happy. I've noticed something lately covering the woke culture space that's threatening to turn corporate offices into university-style safe spaces. There are apparently limits to how far-left big companies are willing to veer to gain progressive brownie points. And this is why I knew this story would eventually come to pass, because anyone who thinks that any business would ever prioritize any public relations stunt, this keeping up appearances bollocks if it cuts into their profits, knows absolutely nothing about business. These corporations are out for one thing and one thing only: money. They do not give a damn about these social issues. They're not moral arbiters, they're a business. If they profess to care, trust me, that is a marketing ploy. They have arsenals of marketing departments that go over every boon and trade-off with a fine-tooth comb. If these people learned they could double their annual profits every year consistently if they came out and supported Trump, there would be a MAGA logo in every marketing gimmick they put out. Case in point, the much-celebrated diversity hustle that companies had begun to embrace during our summer of largely peaceful protests. You know, considering the Democrats are economically illiterate, calling $3.5 trillion free, nearly $2 billion in damage would be classified in their world as largely peaceful, actually. They're at least consistent with their, rejection of all aspects of objective reality. Of course, we all want a diverse workforce. Clearly not corporate America. If it turns out you muck about with their profits, they will drop that diversity crap like a damn anchor. But after the tragic murder of George Floyd, otherwise known as a fentanyl overdose because unlike the mainstream media, I don't lie, some firms thought it would be smart to indoctrinate office workers in that noxious fad known as critical race theory. And how's that working out for you? CRT is an amalgam of left-wing talking points spewed out by the growing diversity consulting business. The stated purpose of its practitioners sound noble enough. Use CRT to root out racism and make the world a better place. Yes, by annoying all white people and teaching non-whites the reason the white people are ahead is not because of competence, structure, work ethic. No. It's because white people bad. I can't imagine why you need quotas with such a system. It just seems bulletproof, designed to produce quality. You absolute bunch of twats. How CRT gets there is the problem. Racism gets rooted out mainly by brainwashing white people into believing they are inherently evil racists. They are inherently evil racists because America is systemically racist, no matter how much it has strived during its history to be better. I like how in this definition, racism is exclusively whites only, as if teaching to despise someone on the basis of their skin color only, and thereby further accelerating division, that's completely acceptable. Man, talk about being short-sighted. Thus, to be good corporate citizens, they need to be re-educated and reprogrammed from their inherently racist past. Oh boy, this right here is why I said whites would benefit from resegregation, because what do we lose? Nothing. We just do what we do now with other white people. I want to ask the people who advocate for these stupid theories, the ones who really take it to heart, what do you do with your life? What skills do you learn? What productive value do you add to the collective society? At all. Whose life are you improving in any capacity by doing this? Because as far as I can tell, you're just a whiny bitch. All of our problems are white people's fault. Okay, now what? How does that sustain your existence? Crickets. If you think that sounds a little like the stuff Stalin, Mao, and Pol Pot pushed back in the day, you wouldn't be wrong. I think if the lemming-like foot soldiers who buy into this crap had any real capacity to liken it to the dregs of China and the Soviet Union, they wouldn't go near any of this crap in the first place. Well, not unless they were grifting psychopaths. Moving along. CRT began where most dumb ideas begin, among leftists on college campuses. Oh man, may I ask, am I the only one that finds it bizarre that damn near everyone that goes into university are complete idiots who know virtually nothing. When you see those videos when they're asking college kids things and you are just blown away by their profound ignorance, don't you go to uni on the basis of you showing some kind of intellectual prowess and potential? And the fact that these stupidest ideas come from a university, a place where you would think you'd rigorously scrutinize ideas before you put them out into the real world. But no, it's a place where the dumbest ideas are conjured and released into the world like a plague with no feedback mechanism. So it's mainly just dominated by a bunch of conceited, know-it-all, pretentious prats. It wasn't long before it somehow began seeping into the mainstream, into classrooms, and finally into corporate America, particularly after the unrest of the past year. Yeah, a drug addict dies in an overdose, mass looting and rioting takes place, and a corporate entity goes, oh, you see all of that cancerous chaos? Let's follow that ideology. Why? But luckily, corporate America is a fickle bitch, especially when profit sees diminishing returns. And parents are starting to notice something is off. And I'm sure many of you have seen the psychotic Attorney General Merrick Garland has signed off on mobilizing the FBI against parents who are turning against the school system because they're indoctrinating their children with propaganda, which is insane. According to my reporting, corporate HR departments, particularly on Wall Street, are worried that overly politicized and polarizing diversity training is among the most counterproductive fads in recent years if you want your workforce to get along. Worse, it is just bad for business. Really? No shit! You mean telling a substantial portion of your workforce they're terrible, evil, racist oppressors doesn't do well for team building? I am so shocked! Now, this may be a bit abstract and contains some contradictory variables, but I'm feeling mischievous, so screw it. This would lead me to speculate the majority of the competent people are white, because CRT is anti-white propaganda, so they won't like it. If the non-whites are in any way competent and secure in their positions, well, they would just dismiss CRT outright as nonsense. If the white people were incompetent, you could just sack them and replace them with competent non-whites. You wouldn't suffer any bad PR. But if you sack a bunch of non-whites, you're gonna have some bad press. So, I'm just saying. Consider at the height of the racial unrest last year, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon was taking a knee in apparent support of the radical and Marxist Black Lives Matter movement. Look at this pathetic picture and these posturing stage actors. Could we just take a moment to admire the sheer absurdity of this picture and everything it represents? If someone came to me and said, show me why the left are just batshit insane wacky, this would be a really, really good example. I would say most people here earns a moderate to higher 5-figure salary at least, some 6 figures I imagine. These are corporate American figures, a capitalist institution, and they are taking a knee for a radical Marxist organization that is the antithesis of their very existence, and they are engaging in a symbol of submission. Does anyone think anyone in this photo has ever for a single second given thought to the philosophical underpinnings of BLM? Hell no, they couldn't give a toss. It's simply, hi, photo up, smile. Okay, maybe not smile because they're all wearing masks like unthinking lemmings. But after the picture, right back to being cutthroat workers. That's all there is to it. The New York Times reported that the email inbox of Robin DiAngelo, the academic considered one of the key architects of CRT, was flooded with urgent emails from various companies requesting that she share her thoughts with their employees. Oh, why? Why would you do this? Okay, maybe I am missing something. But if your company had a smooth workforce before, and you didn't have friction until after you filled your employees' heads with this bullshit, why would you then phone the architect of those stupid ideas and further inject the heads of your staff and not just call her a useless arsehole and tell her to go screw herself? And Goldman Sachs is apparently one of the big banks that flipped CRT the middle finger, and the other big banks apparently also saw how stupid American Express looked when a very profitable credit card company decided to subject their staff to an anti-capitalist, anti-American doctrine. It did not go well. Go figure. CRT is also counterproductive. Big companies, particularly big investment banks, rely on teamwork, and so does every other damn business. CRT does just the opposite, dividing people along racial lines between oppressors and oppressed. We need people to get along, said one executive at a big bank that has cleansed CRT from training sessions. Of course, it's difficult for me to know whether the CRT cease and desist is real, if I'm not in the training sessions to determine if Goldman or JP Morgan, for example, have replaced CRT with something equally absurd that simply drops a noxious-sounding name. That said, workplace inclusion consultants with whom I spoke say the trend away from this divisive training is happening because it's both exhausting and idiotic to tell people they're inherently evil and expect them to work together. Oh man, the common sense when these people finally realize that this entire doctrine is nothing but a bunch of divisive bullshit is just fantastic. Couldn't come soon enough. But also, now that corporate America is beginning to de-wokeify and ironically are beginning to wake up to this nonsense, would someone mind telling the educational board if this is making the corporate environment toxic and unproductive? What do you think it's going to do to future young employees who are being taught this shit through the public school system? You might want to tell them it sucks in the corporate world, it's gonna suck everywhere else as well. I think there's a recognition that companies were failing to ask if they were leaning too much into identity along the lines of race, ethnicity, and gender, said Ilana Redstone, a sociology professor at the University of Illinois and founder of Diverse Perspectives Consulting. I'll take world's most pointless company for 500. I think that is now changing. There is a middle ground where those dimensions of identity matter. No, there isn't. And so does the individual. Not everyone sees their race, ethnicity, or gender as the most important part of who they are. Yes! Finally! We have reached our destination of common sense. Welcome to the world of non-leftism. We have a table for you right this way. Woo! You know what is hilarious about the leftists who do think that all of those traits defy them? They are the most boring people you will ever come across because they have no sense of personal identity at all. They have just acquiesced into this blob of stereotypes that you can immediately identify with just a couple of key points. They are the most obsequious of people, and they get very, very testy if you point any of that out. And that's all for today. Until next time.